Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Surrey Police Board June 2024 meeting. I'd like to acknowledge that the Surrey Police Board recognizes that our work takes place on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples. And I know, Chief, it's been a very busy month for you and your team, so I know there's quite a bit to cover and some presentations. So with that, Mel, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. First up, we have adoption of the agenda for June 26, 2024.
Yeah, and that's approved.
Thank you very much. Adoption of the minutes from the previous board meeting, May 29th, 2024.
And likewise, I've reviewed them and they're approved.
Thank you. So we do have two presentations. The first is the Surrey Food Bank, and Chief Lipinski, I'll pass it over to you for introductions.
Thank you very much. I want to make a few preliminary comments about the Surrey Food Bank before I hand it over to Gail for the introductions. They've certainly been in Surrey for quite some time. They do such great work in the community. They are an integral part of the community. We are building relationships with them because when we're looking at community wellness as we move forward towards our community policing model, it's so important that we have these relationships. And I think it's very practical to have them here and to talk about what exactly they do so that the board and the community has a little bit more of a lens on some of their great work. So with that, I'll hand it over to Gail for the introductions.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Chair, I'm happy to introduce Kim Savage, the Executive Director of the Surrey Food Bank, and Vijay Naidu, who's the Manager of Communications and Community Partnerships. They're going to present to us today on the, as you said, excellent work that the Surrey Food Bank is doing to support our community. Over to you, Kim and Vijay.
Thank you, everyone. So today we're going to talk about building stronger communities together, and it takes multi-level partnerships throughout the community of Surrey to do that. And if we could just flip to the next slide. So as Gail said, my name is Kim Savage. I am the very newly minted Executive Director of the Surrey Food Bank. I started on June 5th. And I have my colleague here, Vijay Naidu, who is our Manager of Community Partnerships. And together with our colleagues, our vision and the vision of the Surrey Food Bank is to really see a nourished and thriving community free of poverty. And one of the ways that we focus on that is leading with care and dignity in the effective distribution of nutritious food for those in need, and building partnerships to provide related services that will eliminate poverty in our community. So we very much see that we are only one piece of this pie or puzzle, but that we also acknowledge that we play a pretty important role in meeting some of the food security needs of lower income families and individuals in our community. Next slide. So just in terms about us, we serve in the communities of Surrey and North Delta. We go as far south as 40th Avenue, and then basically all the other borders of Surrey. So, and in terms of clients, we're seeing between 17 and 18,000 clients monthly, and 47% of those clients are under the age of 19. So they're actually children and young people. Last year in 2023, we served a total of almost 170,000 people. We distributed 1.5 million pounds of food, and we reached 51,268 households. So there's a big impact that the Surrey Food Bank is making in terms of reaching a number of people in our community. Next slide. So just by way of a little bit of background, so Surrey Food Bank was started in 1983 in the neighborhood of Whalley, and it was actually supposed to be a temporary solution to meet the temporary need of people facing insecurity. At that time, there was incredible inflation and interest rates, and life was very unaffordable, not unlike it is now. And so the food bank was established to meet some of those food security needs. And 41 years later, we're still here, and we are very much a cornerstone of the community services, and we continue to rise to meet the needs of vulnerable residents. So what was supposed to be a temporary solution to a temporary problem has become a little bit more of a permanent solution to a more permanent problem. Next slide, please. So in terms of our distribution depots, we have 4 of them. The Newton Depot, which is our main warehouse facility, the Cloverdale Depot, which operates outside of a church, the Guildford Depot also operates out of a church, and the North Delta Depot serving our North Delta residents. And with that, I'm going to ask for the next slide, and I'm going to toss it over to my colleague, Vijay.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for having us at this Surrey Police Board meeting. So, I would just like to say something about this slide. So, we have 3 important programs that we do. So one is the Tiny Bundles. That happens every Wednesday. And we distributed during that time over 5,000 baby formulas and 13,000 diapers. So in a year. We also have our senior distribution program as well. That happens every second Monday. And we cater to around 2,100 families or seniors in a year. We also do Hamper to Your Home program as well. So it's for our clients who can't actually physically come to the location. And we, in a week, we deliver over 70 food hampers to our clients. Next slide, please. So in our last fiscal year, we served on an average around 180 families each day and distributed over 200,000 canned goods. And in the stats that Kim mentioned before, we serve over 17,000 clients every month. So out of that, 47% of our clients are children, under the age of 19 years old, and 15% are over the age of 18 years old. Next slide, please. Oh. And without volunteers, we can't operate. Without volunteers. Volunteers are the backbone of the Surrey Food Bank. So we have right now over 300 active volunteers, and volunteer-wise, we are never short of volunteers because people just reach out to us, and sometimes we have to stop the registration process. So. Volunteer-wise, we do a great job over there. And also in a year, volunteers serve over 27,000 hours in a year. So that's a lot of hours that volunteers dedicate, of their time to us. Next slide, please. Yeah, and also in regards to community engagement, we do have Meet the Bank program that happens Monday to Friday, just before our distribution starts. So what we do in Meet the Bank is it's every Monday and Tuesday. It's the schools that come to our Meet the Bank program, and it's kind of like a team building activity for them, or like a field trip for them. Where a teacher along with a group of 10 students, they get to know what we do at the food bank, and then they get to also volunteer with us. And from Wednesdays to Fridays is the corporate groups that do the same program with us, and they volunteer with us as well. And also, without the food drive, Surrey Food Bank is nothing. So schools, especially, they do a wonderful job. So every November and December of a year, like last year especially, they helped us raise over 40,000 pounds of food. So that's a lot of food that the school kids do for us. So food drives, Meet the Bank, all this community engagement that we do, it helps us spread the word and spread and create more awareness in the community. Next slide, please. And the trend that we are seeing right now, it's especially last year, our client base increased by 25%. And predominantly the clients that we serve right now, around 40 to 50% are refugee families from Syria, Afghanistan, Ukraine. And there are some international students in there as well. And then there's everyday local Canadians and new immigrants. Those are the client base that we see right now. And in the next year, we're only going to see the trend is only going to go up. Next slide, please. And with this, I'm going to pass this on to Kim.
So we have worked really hard to foster a good partnership with firefighters, police officers, that sort of thing. The Surrey Police Service was very active at our most recent event, Breakfast with the Bank, and it was great to have such good representation there. And they also do, I think on the next slide, several of your members have also spearheaded Thursday's Coffee with the Community. And this is such a great program to destigmatize the relationship between more vulnerable residents of the community and the police service. It creates opportunities for more organic conversation and really positive interaction. So it's something that we're really grateful for. Next slide. And I mean, throughout the year, there's in collaboration. I personally haven't had a chance to experience all of the full calendar of it yet, but I do know that the Surrey Police Service has been a very active partner in various events that we have and in community engagement opportunities, and we're incredibly grateful for that. So thank you. And really, together, we work hard to make a difference, all playing.
Yeah, thank you, Kim and VJ. I'm going to open it up to some questions here. I'll start off. First of all, thank you for the very good presentation, and thank you for the great work that you do in the community. When we're talking funding sources, how does that work with the food bank? I'm assuming you applied for grants, or maybe you can sort of scope it out for us.
Yeah, sure. So we have a fairly diversified funding model that I'm going to work to further expand and grow. But our funding comes from individual donors, various corporate donors and businesses, lots of sort of social service or sort of social agencies like the Rotary and the Lions Club and that sort of thing. We also get a lot of food donations from, the Costco's, the Save-Ons of the world. And when you roll all of that up together, you get to about a $4 million budget of actual hard cash, probably another 6 or 7 million in value of food and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the reason I ask is I look at your numbers, and obviously the demand is increasing over the last number of years, and I just see it increasing in the future. So it's a commentary on what's going on in the world and all kinds of dynamics, as well as cost of living. So thank you for that. Mr. Chair, back to you. You're on mute there, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I will get it. First off, maybe just before I pass it over to Lab for the question, Kim, congratulations on your new position. It's an incredible amount of work, and pretty proud of the work that you guys do. It's amazing. And VJ, likewise, thank you for everything you do. Pretty touching and impactful when you see that 47% of those recipients are youth. And so I was just quickly wondering about access to schools, and I know there's the different programs that currently exist within schools, but I'm sure you're very much part of that.
Yeah, I mean, we play a role. There is actually a lot of community partners that have taken a bit of an adopt a school program approach, which is beneficial to us because we certainly couldn't do it all. And certainly over the next year, I will be really working to work with those other organizations to make sure that there's no gaps and that we're collaborating well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well,
yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you both for your presentation. And I just wanted to say that, coming out there each week for our community event is really a highlight for all of us. We really enjoy being there, and we thank you both for having us. Just a question on the the upward trend. I was surprised about that slide. I mean, with the increased demands, just curious in terms of some of the challenges or opportunities with that and how you're sort of managing it, just so I sort of have an understanding of how maybe we can intersect at some point.
You want me to go?
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, I think obviously in terms of the challenges, it's, we're working pretty hard to keep pace with the demand, because we can't kind of scale up quite as fast as demand scales up, and demand tends to come in these waves of sort of increasing. That said, Surrey Food Bank actually has a very good, to use a bit of a marketing term, very good brand recognition within the city of Surrey. So, we can leverage that to a certain extent, and certainly Surrey Food Bank and food security in particular, and the affordability of life in particular, is front of mind. So it's a pretty easy conversation to have with potential donors or new partners. So we're actually seeing a real willingness for the community to engage. But I think we need to definitely do more of that. And certainly in the next year, I want to go after some of those much bigger organizations who probably are actually hiring a lot of their entry-level staff in their companies are coming from the community of Surrey, and looking to them to help give back.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Mike?
Thank you both. Again, that's a great presentation. I'm curious as to if you have any sense as to how much of your client base would fall into that vulnerable person demographic, either relating to substance abuse or mental health challenges?
I'm going to let
Yeah.
VJ answer that one.
That's a good question, Michael. We collaborate with PICS and options and those kind of organizations. So they have we do have vulnerable clients that we serve. So they all running from domestic abuse or things like that. So what happens in cases like that is that they come with a case manager. So sometimes they don't want to show their identification or something like that. So sometimes they won't even turn up. So it will be just a case manager coming up, and we'll try to accommodate them, and try register the client. And in cases like that, what we do is we do hamper to your home program, because sometimes they're not comfortable coming to the food bank. So we do cater vulnerable people as well. So that's around maybe 5% of our 5 to 6% of our client base.
Great, thank you.
No worries.
Well, thank you, Kim and VJ. I mean, such an important service, and over 41 years, I think you said, and just incredible connection with the community. I was really happy to see, the connection SPS has with the food bank in Surrey there, and I know as they continue to grow, they're going to continue to build that relationship, which is critical to connect with everybody within the community. So, thank you for your service. It's incredible. So I appreciate you being here today and presenting. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you. Take care. And Melissa, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. Up next, we have the Integrated Communications Assessments and Tactics, ICAT, presentation. Chief? Your audio doesn't appear to be working, Chief.
Still can't hear you, Chief.
Yeah.
Maybe let's turn it over to our presenter, maybe.
Yeah, we'll turn it over to Inspector Maglio, and if the chief, maybe he wants to hop off and back on again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Inspector Scott Maglio, the officer in charge of our operational skills section. Just confirming everyone can see my presentation. The ICAT is up there. Okay, perfect.
We have it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me today. I'm here to present on our integrated communications assessments and tactics training that we're very proud to run here at SPS for all our members. It's a benefit to de-escalation, and we've rolled this into all our training throughout the operational skills section here. So how do we get there? So there's been a lot of incidences that have occurred throughout the policing world, a lot from the USA as well as from Canada. But there's been a lot of different instances that have happened where you have public trust is an all-time low. Something happens involving the police and the public, and next thing you know, we're having people upset at the use of force that was used, and then it could even go into a public riot. So we understand that we need to be as best we can, and the ICAT training that we're rolling out, we feel is a huge benefit to trying to gain back that public trust. So here at SBS, we really like to go on the term that we're guardians, not warriors. Obviously, policing, depending on what role you're in, there can be some very serious calls you go to. There are times that police need to be warriors, but we do like to think of ourselves as guardians more so, in that we're keeping the community safe, we're keeping persons in crisis safe, we're keeping our officers safe, and then we're saving lives, and we're also saving careers. If we can operate as professionally as possible and de-escalate a situation so that we don't have to use force, that's our number one pick that we're going to go with. There's been an increase in violent encounters. So throughout the 2000s, there's been a steady increase in officer-involved shootings, even in Canada. Approximately half of police-related deaths involve persons in crisis, and trends require a new and different approach to training in police de-escalation. So the ICAT training is a comprehensive training program that integrates communications and tactics with a goal of reducing the need to use force. So ICAT focuses on non-ballistic use of force situations involving knives, edge weapons, bats, etc. The Police Executive Research Forum has analyzed this training, and they're the ones that originally rolled out with this training. We do scenario-based training, shoot, no shoot based scenarios, and we're dealing with the officers' emotions as well when they're going through stressful incidences, giving them that training so that they can control their emotions as best they can, so that hopefully they can use the tools that we're training them in to de-escalate the situation. So you might ask yourself, like, don't we already have that? We do have in BC, we have the Crisis Intervention De-escalation Training, which is mandatory for all police officers. All police officers in BC must complete the full one-day de-escalation training, which is good training. Then from there, they don't have to complete that once in their career, and then once every 3 years, they must do a refresher, which is around a 3 to 4 hour online course. So yes, we do already have de-escalation training that's mandated. However, we feel that we need more of that type of training, more de-escalation training. And how we do it, this is on the left here is the National Use of Force Framework. And then in the middle here is the de-escalation, crisis intervention and de-escalation techniques. So this comes right from the CID course. It's good. It is a good approach in that you have your 4 different phases to deal with the situation. But we feel that you need to also increase our reps and how we're doing it. So we like to really rep it out. And in reality-based training, we like to have members put into situations where their stress is increased, and we can help and teach them on tools in order to bring their emotions down, bring their stress down. That way they can then hopefully use the tools we've taught them to be able to de-escalate the situation. So some communication, some 5 universal truths to human interaction. There's a need to always be respected. We'd rather be asked than told. So we'd rather be given options rather than being told only one ultimatum or told what to do. It's better that we're asked to do something. There's a desire, a human desire to know why. Why do I need to do that? Why are you asking me to do that? And why do I actually have to do it? Like I said, we prefer to have options rather than threats. And we want to have a second chance. So that's some 5 human truths to the human reaction. The 80-20 rule is super important. in that we must listen 80% of the time and only talk about 20% of the time, especially when someone's in crisis. It's so important to listen to what is going on, and we're listening to understand. We're not listening to respond. So that active listening that the members have to teach themselves to do, it takes a lot of effort, but when we can do that and listen to what is happening, we have a really good chance of hopefully being able to connect with the person and de-escalate the situation. The tactics. So we talk about a tactical pause. So if it's not an immediate threat, we need to slow things down. If we can slow things down as the police, then we have a better chance that we'll be able to de-escalate that situation and hopefully not have to resort to using any force. When the emotions are high, rational thinking goes down. So that's where we train and want to train in that reality-based world and train in stressful situations so that we can hopefully bring our emotions back down so that we can get back to some sort of rational thinking. We want to rep it out. We talk about that. So these are some photos here of our actual SPS members doing the ICAT training. So this ICAT training, we run multiple scenarios. We have 5 scenarios that we're running right now, and we're using professional actors to bring in to be the actors in these scenarios. All our members throughout SPS get this training. So every single experienced officer that comes through our onboarding gets a 1 full day training of this. In the morning is all classroom, where they learn, we give them the tools, we talk about active listening, we learn how to de-escalate a situation, and then the afternoon is all scenario-based with these professional actors. At SPS here, we obviously have members from all over Canada, and we have members that have huge experience. The feedback that we get after this training is that this is some of the best training that they've had in their career. We've had 30-year police officers that after the end of the day training come to our officers and say, this was the best training I've ever received. Where was this back when I started? And that they say how realistic the training is, how they thought they were in a real life scenario in going through this training. So it's a huge benefit that we're going through this. Some of the scenarios that we do a person with a knife that assaulted a mother. We have a transgendered scenario. We have a suicidal gay person that's looking over the edge as a jumper here. We have a person with a bat, which is raging at a workplace. And we also have an Indigenous youth scenario that involves multi-generational trauma. Some of these scenarios I've talked about, I also want to point out that we've worked with the community groups in that area to develop those scenarios. We don't just come up with these scenarios on our own. We actually go out to those groups and say, hey, we would like to incorporate a scenario, around multi-generational trauma, and we worked with the Indigenous groups to come up with that scenario together. So we're really proud of the fact that we're going down that route, working with those community groups to come up with real life scenarios that our members can then rep out in training. Moving forward, we are looking to also add in a language component. Working with the EDI unit. Our unit's also working with the EDI unit, and we're looking to do a language-based scenarios where there's a language gap. You either can't communicate with the person, and you must revert back to some sort of body language to maybe de-escalate the situation as best as possible till you can get somebody that can speak that language that can come assist. So that's something that we're looking in the future to also incorporate into our scenario. And we're always looking to add additional scenarios based on what we see is happening and trends that are happening out in the city. And final slide there. So in summary, ICAT is about saving lives and it's about saving careers. It's about us dealing with people, hopefully de-escalating this situation where someone's in crisis, hopefully not having to revert to force at that point. So it's about saving, those people's lives that we're going out to deal with, but it's also about saving careers. We want people to have a long and enjoyable career. And if we can de-escalate situations as best as possible, hopefully we don't have to put our members into a situation where they have to use force up to lethal force.
Well,
any questions?
Yeah, Scott, before I'll pass over to the chief, but this is awesome training and I have a few questions, but I'll give the chief an opportunity to comment because we lost him at the start. So chief, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Well done, Scott. This is something we spent a lot of time developing, and we looked at the various programs across the country and even south of the border. And we picked what was very relevant for the Surrey environment. And the last point that Scott made in relation to different languages is something new. I don't think any other agency has gone down this road. It's going to be very challenging, but I think that is very relevant given the explosion in population in Surrey and where the future may hold as far as being the biggest city in BC. So I also want to mention that this is not a one and done. So every year when they qualify with their firearms and with their use of force, they go through a scenario. As you can appreciate, Mr. Chair, this is a perishable skill, and we need to ensure that our members are always ready. So thank you, Scott.
No, thank you, Chief, and thanks, Scott. It's a great program. Chief kind of covered one of my questions, was the fact of, is there ongoing training for this and how it does get incorporated into all the use of force training. I know sometimes there's always that expectation in use of force that you will use force in the scenario, but I like scenarios that are based in the fact that you may actually be able to de-escalate and we can move away from the use of force, which is the preferable option. So yeah, Scott, maybe just want to comment.
Yeah, we've incorporated, so again, we don't want to silo our training. We're really getting away from silo training where you have firearms training, less lethal training, de-escalation trainings only in the classroom. So this is a great program that molds everything together. And then also within our unit, all our instructors are cross-trained with firearms, use of force, less lethal, and de-escalation. So we've incorporated the ICAT training into all our training now. So anytime we're running any kind of courses where we're having reality-based scenarios, we always incorporate ICAT into it. And we'll have scenarios where based on how the officers respond, yeah, they might not have to use any force and the person gives up, and that's great. And then we move on from there.
No, that's fantastic. And then I guess the next question I have is, and I didn't hear in any of your scenarios, is there a scenario where, a couple officers will attend a call, which is typical, two officers attending a call, and one officer may be in a more heightened state just based on the call, and how the other officer can actually be part of helping to calm down the situation, including their partner in that situation?
Yes, yeah. So we have scenarios. It's a real script for the actors, the professional actors, and based on how our members respond, the actors either comply and things calm down, or it ramps it up. In lots of scenarios, we'll have to have members switch because they've done something to trigger the actor where they're not getting that thing back on the tracks. And you'll see a switch in the officers go to the cover officer now becomes a person of the primary to try and de-escalate it. So we do roll that through our scenarios.
Oh, that's great. Sometimes you have to work as a team. We'll always work as a team, and one time one officer isn't connecting or might be a bit too elevated. So thank you for that. Todd, question from you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. And Scott, just a question about how you and your team keep current with either trends or social science research that comes out of this, and what do you do to change tactics when you need to?
Yeah, we try to keep up on it all the time. We're obviously connected with the use of force community. We have really good connections across the Lower Mainland with all the training sections. So we get together all the time to discuss this type of stuff. Conferences are important, making sure that we stay up to date on some of the conferences with the trends that are happening. Also, PERF, actually, they have a new training center down in Illinois that is a free course for instructors to go down to. You just have to make your way down there. And we also make sure that we send members down there to stay updated on the current trends.
Scott, maybe if you don't mind, can you just explain what PERF is? I know it's a research forum, but a lot of people don't know what the acronym is.
Yeah, so the acronym is Police Executive Research Forum, and they're based out of the States, but they stay up to date on all the trends that are happening. They're connected with academia, so they have a lot of research that goes into it, and then they then report back, and this group then is involved in the use of force community which then allows us to stay up to date with most of the trends.
Yeah, no, it's really important. We learn from each other and take, the best practices. And I know Perf is a leader in that for sure on many fronts. So I'm glad that you're accessing them as a resource for sure. So is there any other questions that I see from anybody on the panel here? Seeing none. Hey, Scott, thank you so much for the presentation. I really appreciate the work you and your training teams are doing. And I know how critical that is to building a really solid team at SPS.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Thanks, Scott.
Mel, back to you, please.
Thank you very much. We have no current delegation requests. So up next, we have our reports, and under report, we have the financial year-to-date expenditures. So Chief Lipinski and Nathan Wong, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. The summary statement is that we are tracking favorably, and I'll ask Nathan to get into some of the details, and then we'll open it up to questions. Nathan?
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Chair, I'm going to put up some slides to go through to highlight some key points. Can you let me know if you see the slides on your screen? Perfect. So our 2024 provisional budget of 142 million is used as the reference amount for the budget versus actuals in our report. In May, Surrey Council had approved 222 million for police services. That amount is to be split between the RCMP and SPS. However, the exact allocation between the two agencies was not determined. And in addition to the budget allocation from the city, the province of BC has also provided direct support to SPS to move the transition forward. And so far, as of the end of May, the total amount of grants we received from the province is $4.2 million. And at the end of May, our year-to-date expenditures was 35 million. That's approximately 25% utilization of our total provisional budget. Our average monthly expenditures over the past 5 months is about 7 million per month. Our largest area of cost is salary and benefits at 31 million, and at the end of May, that's about 94% of our regular operating costs. And for the first half of the year, we haven't spent much on capital items, but now that we have a POJ date, we do anticipate that line item will increase as we purchase more equipment and inventory that we need for members to be deployed. And other areas of expenditures where we expect the rate to increase in the coming months include IT as we roll out the required tools and technology leading up to POJ, and also our fleet operating costs as we deploy our vehicles into the front line. That being said, all the expenses we anticipate, even though the rate will be increasing, is all within the provisional budget that we put forward. And in terms of the one-time policing transition fund, at the end of May, we're at $1.6 million. That's about 11% of what we projected so far for our total we projected for this year. And similar with the other expenditures, we do anticipate this line item to increase as we lead up to POJ. And I'll take any questions you may have.
Yeah, Nathan, I know that the 4.2 million that we've received from the province to date, we're hoping that very quickly we can start working with the city, get our staff back on their software or HR system. But just for everybody, that primarily is people costs, people hired post December 19th that they have been funding until we can work on an arrangement back with the city to get them on the city payroll.
Correct.
Okay, no, thank you. And then the other thing I think is important to note, so the provisional budget of $141.5 million, as we've been working through this process, we are not going to require, we don't believe, the entire amount of that, but we have to, still sit down and that has not been done yet, to work with the city and the RCMP to address how the funding is going to be split up. And I know we hope to have those conversations shortly, but I don't know if you or Chief want to comment on that. Chief?
Yes, thank you. Definitely. So we are just starting to prepare, the SPS is, to start working on our 2025 budget. And that has to dovetail with the planning that is underway for the transition with the various stakeholders. So the next couple of months is very key, and we certainly look forward to working with the city and having them come to the table.
Yeah, no, I think that's critical. I know we're hoping to be at the table with them shortly, and we can work through with the budget. And Chief, I know you've got a plan working forward on the transition, and I know that we'll take all the stakeholders to be part of that transition plan, and that's how we will work with the RCMP
Correct.
to divide up that budget. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, well, we're on track, and I know that we are going to be seeing increases in many of the costs, especially the capital equipment and those types of costs as the hiring continues to move forward, and we move towards November 29th. So thank you, Nathan. Mel, back to you, please.
Thank you very much. And our next report is from Chief Lipinski on transition updates.
Thank you very much, Mel. A couple of things that I'll mention. I think it's important to note that there are three things in play. Number one, there is a transition plan that has always been implemented in the sense of moving it along. And although in the last year it's been low numbers, and I'm referring to recruits and experienced officers, we still are moving forward. This would also include the vehicles, which we're very excited to have deployed next week. And this also includes some internal movement within the organization. So that has always been there. We're moving that forward with the support of the province and working with our stakeholders. The other segment is the work that needs to be done between now and November 29th. And there's a lot. I'm speaking about IT. I'm speaking about the planning with facilities, just to name a few. So we are meeting with the stakeholders, and that would include the RCMP, not only E Division and the detachment, but also RCMP in Ottawa, Public Safety Canada, and of course the province. And so we are now meeting to draft what that would look like as far as tasking out the various jobs that need to be done between now and November 29th. And then of course, the last segment is what happens after November 29th. What does the model look like? What does the hiring for SPS look like, and the demobilization of the RCMP look like? So those discussions are underway, and we are pointed forward, and I look forward to coming to this board to really talk about a lot of the details, and in the open portion to the public to describe of what the master plan looks like in the coming months and years for the citizens of Surrey. That is my report, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. I think it's just important. We've said this before at the board meeting. It's important to note that a plan includes all stakeholders, and all stakeholders contribute to that plan and have a conversation. So I do know SPS has been working and has had a plan for a while, quite a while now. And that plan is fluid because it involves a lot of other stakeholders that need to be part of that. So, I know there has been some comments about a lack of a plan. I can tell you that there, from what I've seen, a robust plan. But you need to work with all your stakeholders, as you mentioned, and there's going to be challenges, obviously, with that to agree to certain terms. But I know you're working through it, and you're on track for November 29th, which is good. And and with if I'm not mistaken, Chief, we're at just under. We're using the number of 785 as the authorized strength for Surrey, I believe, is the number for 2024. So SPS is at or right about the 50% mark.
Yes, that is correct. 785 is the number that is funded. And that is, just to be clear, that's obviously the entire policing cadre in Surrey, and that would make up us and the RCMP. And we are presently just under 400. I'm going to say 380. And of course, we have about 75 civilians on top of that.
Yeah, so that's just really important to note that where we are right now is at that 50% mark, and now it's a matter of working with the RCMP, City of Surrey, and moving forward your transition plan, which I know will involve a lot of steps between now and then. So thank you to your team for all the work and I know it'll be a very busy summer.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. Mel, back to you.
Thank you very much. We have no information items. We have one piece of correspondence from the Director of Police Services with respect to Indigenous cultural training that's been extended to the end of this year. So, Chief, I'm not sure if you had any comment on that.
Yes, I'll ask Suk to make a couple of comments, if I may, Suk. But bottom line is, for SPS, we are very, very well on track. Suk has involvement in that and is a key project manager. But Suk, maybe a few details.
Absolutely, Chief. Our leadership development section, overseen by Inspector Wong, they're currently putting together online portion for this training, and there was a series of training that was done over the course of the last 2 months that was in person, where we had guest speakers from the Indigenous community come in and speak with our members as well for in-person increment training sessions. So they're bringing together all the pieces in terms of meeting all the objectives for the training, not just for now, but also for future planning as well. So it's all coming together, and right now it's on time to get it all done by the end of the year.
Good news. Thanks, Suk. Appreciate your work on that.
You're welcome.
Mel?
Thank you very much. We have no new business, and we still have to determine our July meeting date. So once that's done, Mr. Chair, I will post that publicly for awareness.
Thank you.
Okay, so next I request that you approve holding a meeting in a closed session pursuant to section 69(2)C and D of the Police Act.
Thanks. It's approved, and thank you everyone for being here for the open session. Thanks, Mel. Mel, let's take if we can all be back at 1 o'clock, please.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.